The college basketball season is about to begin, so we're going to start with the NCAA overall landscape predictions here. Like I said, I know a lot of people here are college basketball junkies, not just Ohio State fans, so I'm going to give some broad opinions here on today's show. And I'm going to start with my selections of the first team All-Americans. Now, if you look at preseason lists, you're going to find a bunch of players, first team, second team, third team, and you'll find even more Pac-12, especially, where there's like 18 players making a preseason list. For me, it's not that way. 5 players are going to make this All-American team, 3 in the backcourt, 2 in the front court, because that's how basketball is played. I'm going to have a couple honorable mentions here, but to start, I'm going to go with the backcourt here. All-American. First selection is going to be a player that Ohio State plays this season, and that is Wade Taylor IV out of Texas A&M. I'm very bullish on Texas A&M this season, and that is in large part thanks to Wade Taylor IV. So last season, he averaged 16 points per game, averaged 4 assists per game, and I took a look at the game log to see, hey, was he better at a certain time of the season? Did he get hot down the stretch? The answer, yes, he did get hot down the stretch. In his final 8 regular season games, he scored 18 points or more in 7 of them. So that would lead you to believe potentially Wade Taylor IV has got some more good play coming this season. He's playing on a very, very good Texas A&M team that I said already I like a lot. Wade Taylor IV is my first pick to be a first-team All-American this season. Now let's go to a Big Ten player, another one that Ohio State will play. This one, Terrence Shannon Jr. So look, again, my picks are not going to be vanilla. Terrence Shannon Jr. is probably not the most picked player to be first-team All-American, but I've got him in here. He averaged 17 points per game last season, dealt with some injuries on and off, but he closed the season very, very strong. He had 5 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, an extremely complete player for Illinois. He can get to the rim. He can shoot from deep. He's left-handed, which is always fun. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to carry Illinois this season until they can figure out who else is going to step up on this team. I'll talk more about Illinois in this episode, but Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to be my second pick as an All-American this season. Here's the issue, okay? I said that I'm going to have 3 players in the backcourt, 2 in the front court. The issue with college basketball this season is that the front court is loaded. So I'm just going to say Zach Edey, he cannot play in the backcourt. We know that. But could you get away potentially with playing this player as a quote-unquote 3? Maybe. If Jason Tatum can be a quote-unquote 3, then so can this player. And it's Kyle Filipowski. Kyle Filipowski, probably the best returning player in college basketball coming into this season, playing at Duke last year. He had 15 points per game. He had 9 rebounds per game. And he also came away with 16 double-doubles. Basically, in half of the games that Kyle Filipowski played in for Duke last season, he came through with double digits, points, and rebounds. He can stroke it from deep. He's a big body. This right here is not only a phenomenal college basketball player, but he's a phenomenal basketball player who will make it to the next level in the NBA. He could have left Duke, and he could have gotten paid in the NBA. He decided to stay with Duke this season. Filipowski is a star. He is very good. I've got him in the upper echelon in a very short list of the best basketball players in college basketball this season. Let's continue with another player that Ohio State fans are very familiar with, but will not have to play unless they take him on in postseason play, and that's Hunter Dickinson at Kansas. Obviously, we are familiar with Hunter Dickinson and the clowning that he did sometimes perform with Michigan and at times against Ohio State. A somewhat annoying player, but doesn't take away from the fact that he is super skilled. 19 points per game last season, 9 rebounds per game, 2 blocks per game. This is a player that I'm putting in my first team. I think that he's probably going to be a unanimous All-American, and maybe first team, second team, third team, but he's going to be in there at some point. I'm putting in him here simply because, number one, I think he's really good. Unfortunately, a 7-footer who can shoot the three, that's something that you need, and I wish Ohio State had a player like that. But I'm putting him in here as well because I think Kansas is going to be really good this season, and I think he's going to be the best player on potentially the best team in college basketball this season. So for that reason, he's got to be there on the first team. Last player I will pick is a college basketball star who I think will be very bad in the NBA at some point and not have much a career. And that description, if you've been listening to the show for long enough, you should know who I'm talking about. And that's Zach Edey at Purdue. By the way, Ohio State is going to play 3 of these 5 players, has played 4 of these 5 players, actually 5 of these 5 players. Ohio State, I believe, played Duke last season, unless my memory fails me, but I'm pretty sure they did. I should go back and look it up. I won't. I don't feel like it. And it's also not that important to me. So for that reason, I'm out on looking up if Ohio State played Duke last season. I can't remember. Zach Edey, though, 22 points per game, 13 rebounds per game. He swept all 6 Player of the Year awards last season. He steps into a Purdue team this year that has essentially no major subtractions on the team. This Purdue team is right up there with Kansas in terms of teams expected to not just make a push for the Final Four, but expected to potentially go out, run the table, and win the NCAA tournament. We know what Zach Edey is. 7'4", huge, difficult to guard, but if you can get up in him, you could potentially make him uncomfortable. And if he's not on the block, then he's not going to have success. So rather one-dimensional player, but in that one dimension, he is essentially unstoppable. Couple honorable mentions here, players who I didn't mention that you would say maybe you would have him in your first team All-American, and that's fine. They're just not in mine. Some honorable mentions, Armando Bacot over at North Carolina. I'm sure he's going to step up and have another really, really good year. I don't have him on my first team. Tyler Kolek at Marquette, bro can pass. He can dish. He can distribute the ball. Really impressive player. Really, really good off the pick and roll. We're going to talk about Marquette in a little bit here. Hint, hint. So I'll pause on talking about him for now. Boogie Ellis over at USC. Another player I would mention, Donovan Clingan at UConn. Max Abrams, Ohio State killer, now at Texas. I've got him listed here as well. And Tyrese Proctor at Duke. Again, this season in college basketball, it's a pretty light backcourt. There's a lot more talent in the front court. And when you talk about Player of the Year candidates, that's what we'll talk about next. And that's where you've got a lot of talent, is in the front court. I've got 3 what I would call quote-unquote finalists to win Player of the Year this season in college basketball. And those 3, of course, are included on my first team All-Americans. I've got Zach Edey, I've got Hunter Dickinson, and I've got Kyle Filipowski. I'm not sure that there's really a bad pick here. I don't know what betting odds look like. I probably could have, not only could I have looked this up before recording, I probably should have to see who's the leader here. I would assume it's probably Zach Edey since he did it last season, and it's hard to see him not taking this award again this season. So the thing is, though, it's really hard to repeat in any kinds of these awards. You look in college football, Caleb Williams right now, pretty much no shot of taking the Heisman after winning it last year and being the favorite again this year. So I'm not going to take Zach Edey. I'm going to take Kyle Filipowski at Duke because, again, I think Duke is going to be really good. Kansas is going to be really good as well. I think Kyle Filipowski is one of the most versatile and talented players in all of college basketball. Duke will use him well. They used him well last season. He's going to step into his sophomore campaign here, and I think he'll have a lot of success. So Player of the Year candidate, I'm going to go with Kyle Filipowski. Let's talk Final Four as we continue with these NCAA projections here. I've got a couple teams who will not be making the list. I'm going to start with, again, the quote-unquote honorable mentions. FAU is a team that burst onto the scene last season and made a run in the NCAA tournament. And this is a team that is 3rd in returning production in all of college basketball. Of the nearly 400 teams in college basketball, FAU is third. They're right in front of Wisconsin, by the way, who is in fourth. So I've got FAU not making the Final Four this season. They're a team that I considered. Another team I considered. A few other teams I considered. I'll just kind of blow through these real quick. I've got Kansas, I've got UConn, and I've got Purdue as well that I think could make the Final Four, but they're not going to make my list. Other notes on the Final Four. We saw what happened last season. It's going to be very unlikely that these 4 teams make the Final Four because they're all projected to be powerhouses this season. If I hit on 1 of 4, I'll be content. If I hit on 2 of 4, I might have to play some money on these teams so that I can make some money. So we'll see. But first team I'm going to call out here making to the Final Four is going to be Duke. By the way, these are in no particular order. I'm going to take Duke. We've already talked about Kyle Filipowski. I mentioned Tyrese Proctor as well. Jeremy Roach as well steps into his senior season, an experienced guard for Duke who averaged 14 points per game last season. A lot of attention is going to be on Kyle Filipowski, but Jeremy Roach could be a player who's a first-team All-ACC guy. He could step up and really give Duke a push that they need. They're super deep as well. You look at the freshman class coming in, it's always good, but you've got a combination of TJ Power, Sean Stewart, Jared McCain. All of those guys are going to give plenty of depth to Duke. And for the first time in a while, I think you're going to see a Duke team that isn't led by freshmen. This is a talented freshman class. They've got a 5-star, a couple 4-stars coming in as well for the Blue Devils this season. I think this is a team that's going to be led by Filipowski and Roach and Proctor, guys who are stepping in not as freshmen, but who have played in college basketball before. So I think that's going to help out Duke a lot. Duke is my first team in the Final Four. It's hard to see them missing. Another team that, again, this is probably the most far-fetched, but it's a team I'm really, really high on. I already spoke about Wade Taylor the fourth. I'm going to take Texas A&M to be the second team here in the Final Four in my picks. They're 6th in returning production among power conference teams this season. Obviously, they've got a date with Ohio State coming up in about less than 2 weeks. They'll be playing the first Friday of the regular season. So we as Buckeye fans are going to get a good look at Texas A&M this season. They've got a really, really tough non-conference schedule, which is going to help them be battle-tested. They're picked to finish first in the SEC, I believe, or second. Tennessee might be picked first in the preseason poll. But I've got Texas A&M as the toughest team Ohio State is going to have to play as well. Ohio State obviously has Alabama, UCLA, potentially Oregon as well. But I think Texas A&M is the best team Ohio State will play this season. They've got a good supporting cast, good rebounding team. Julius Marble there, Michigan State transfer. He's been good as a forward for Texas A&M. They rebound the ball well. They shoot free throws well. This is a really well put together team that finally made it to the NCAA tournament last season under Buzz Williams. I've got Texas A&M in the Final Four this season. Another team I'm on and that I'm super high on. I've discussed them already in this Big Ten season preview series. I already said Purdue's not in. The team I've got in from the Big Ten in the Final Four, ending this drought of Big Ten teams not making it to the Final Four, is Michigan State. Sparty. I'm going to talk about them again in the Big Ten prediction, so I won't say too much on them, but I've got a Michigan State insider who has said Cohen Carr, the hype there, it's probably appropriate, but a player who's not getting enough love right now for Sparty is Xavier Booker. Stands at 6'11". He's going to play there in the front court for Michigan State. They are so talented right now. They're number 5 in returning production among all power conference teams, and they've got the number 5 recruiting class. There is no more talented roster in terms of blue chip and returning blue chip talent than Michigan State has. Obviously, they've got Tyson Walker, AJ Hoggard in the backcourt. Mady Sissoko will be a nice piece, I think, playing center with Xavier Booker there in the front court. And I think if Tyson Walker can step up for Michigan State and really become potentially an All-American type player, maybe not first team, but he can be second team, third team, one of the best players in college basketball, and especially in the Big Ten, Michigan State, the sky's going to be the limit for them. So they're the third team I've got in the Final Four. Last team I'm going to take in the Final Four this season is Marquette. They're 10th in returning production this season. They're third among power conference teams in returning production. I talked about Tyler Kolek. He was named Big East preseason player of the year. Many have him as a first-team All-American, probably the most popular first-team All-American player who I did not select in my preseason All-American first team. Like I said, incredibly gifted passer, really, really skilled with the pick and roll. He's really, really good catching and shooting as well. Elite catch and shooter. I believe he shot 46% on catch and shoot opportunities last season for Marquette. They've got Cam Jones, could be the best shooting guard in the Big East. He averaged 15 points per game last season. And Marquette, of the 5 positional awards in college basketball, as in you are the best point guard, you are the best 2, you are the best small forward in college basketball, Marquette has 4 players listed on the preseason watch list for those awards. 80% of their starting lineup is on a national preseason watch list. That's impressive for Marquette. So I've got Marquette in the Final Four as well. So Marquette, Michigan State, Texas A&M, and Duke are my 4 Final Four teams. Now, who's going to advance to the national title game? I've got Duke and I've got Michigan State advancing to play in the national title game in early April 2024 this season. And I'm sorry, if it's bold, you're going to have to hate me. There are some varying opinions on where Michigan State is going to be this season. But I'm taking Michigan State out of the Big Ten to win the national title game this season. I think Tom Izzo is going to be able to take this roster to the heights that it needs to go. Because if you look at this roster and you've got, Hubert Davis or Buzz Williams, like we mentioned, coaching this team, I don't trust that this could potentially be a Final Four team. I know they could be. Will it? I don't know. The odds are lower. But when you've got Tom Izzo there, when you've got Michigan State playing in March, playing in April with an experienced backcourt, an incredibly talented freshman class, Michigan State, sorry Buckeye fans, I've got Sparty winning the national title this season. Howdy. I'm Tim Miller. I am the host of the Views from the Shot podcast. I want to thank you for watching this video as a part of the 2023 season preview series where we preview the Ohio State University men's basketball team. Would encourage you to take a stroll through the other videos we've got on this channel and find us wherever you are listening to your podcast, whether that be on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else. Find us there. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for a bunch of great content. Appreciate you watching today's show. Find us on Twitter. Give us some feedback. Do all the things. Look forward to chatting with you soon. Go Bucks!